Batman 66 is better than Madam Web. Something produced in the 60s is superior to Madam Web that was just released this very year a couple of days ago. I don't even think it's been released yet. Has it been released yet? I don't even know. I'm lost. But anyway, this TV series and the original movie for this TV series has a superior production value and writing for superheroes than Madam Web. Let that sink in. Now, I'm not saying this to say, oh, even this is better than Madam Web, because this is outstanding, pioneering, and iconic. A great take on two iconic Caped Crusaders. Let's put this down because this is a box set and this is heavy. I have seen Madam Web. Lionel Luthor, can you please give me the electroshock therapy you gave Lex Luthor in Smallville to make him forget that you killed your parents? Please make me unsee what I've just seen. Welcome to New Hollywood. Before I go deeper into this, because I'm not going to give you a review of Madam Web, I'm not here to give you a review, I'm going to talk to you about the sadness of this film and what it means for comic book movies in general and for the industry going forward. Here's my Courtney Cox Masters of the Universe analogy. Masters of the Universe is a film that flopped, a film that most people make fun of. It literally is the Morbius and Madam Web of 1987. The difference is it's watchable, it's enjoyable, it has character arcs, and you do shed a few tears in the movie as well. Actually, I fucking like Masters of the Universe. But one of my favourite elements is a character a young Courtney Cox, yes, from Friends, plays. So she plays a young girl who lost both her parents in an aeroplane crash. She goes through this arc and this journey. She wants to leave the place where she was brought up. She doesn't want to think about her parents or losing her parents, so she wants to move away. And she goes through this beautiful arc. The personality of this young woman is about mourning, about going through a journey and getting over that mourning. I mean, what happens in the end kind of takes all that away, but never mind, it doesn't matter. Courtney Cox's character in Masters of the Universe is heroic, but not just that. It's a great representation of a young woman. This was back in 1987. This is a better representation of a female character in a movie that flopped, like Madam Web, of course, will do. It's better, right? Courtney Cox's character in Masters of the Universe is a better female character, is a better representation of women in film than any of the females in Madam Web. Let that sink in. That's my Courtney Cox Masters of the Universe analogy compared to the females of Madam Web. But it's very, very interesting, isn't it? Because sometimes we meet artists and people who work in New Hollywood who have morals, who got into this industry for the right reasons. Dakota Johnson, who stars in Madam Web, is one of those people. She's been telling everyone who wants to listen that New Hollywood is fucked, that she's fed up of these studios, of these CEOs, these know-nothings interfering with movies. And she's telling everyone this, that there's no indie movies. She seems very, very depressed. We see her going on that red carpet, looking beautiful and delightful, along with her other leads, female leads in the movie as well. But she ain't a happy bunny. I respect you, Dakota, a great deal for calling this fucking movie out. She can't stand there and say, this is shit. But she has said there were major changes to this movie. Because what they do is, as an artist, they show you the script before they lock you in, right? You speak to the director. You speak to the people involved and you say, fuck me, this is a great script. Hopefully she didn't say fuck me. I think especially with the people in Hollywood, you know, they probably take it literally. But let's just say she loved the script, she signs on, she's locked in. It's called locked in for a reason, because once you sign, there's no fucking getting out of that project. So once they lock you in, then you see the truth. They change the scripts, then it's a pale imitation of the movie you thought you was going to make. And this is what's happened to poor Dakota, a very respected artist in the industry. And she's speaking out against New Hollywood and against this movie. I feel bad for her, I really do. You know, I saw her answering some questions on one of the red carpets she was at, and she looked sick to her stomach, like she really didn't want to be there. Just imagine that, right? You know, as a young person who wants to be in the industry, and I know exactly how that feels, you dream about making your Oscar speech when you win an Oscar. You dream about performing with other artists either on film sets or on stage. And then your dreams come true. You get the opportunity to do that, and it's this piece of shit. Now, this is very interesting, because they talk about diversity, they talk about female representation. Hollywood cannot represent women. They don't know how to write female characters, because when they're representing female characters, they're representing Hollywood, Californian, spoiled brats, not the real women that you and I know. Same with Barbie, is representing spoiled Californian women and not the real women we all know. You don't have to be a woman to know how to write for women. That's been one of the problems in Hollywood, in New Hollywood today, where they get these activists to write for women, but they're not representing the varied women we know in the real world. Have you noticed they don't really represent timid women anymore, because that would send the wrong impression? But timid women have got great stories to tell, as well as the strong ones. But the strong women that I've met throughout my long life, I'm 51 years old, I've met so many different, brilliant, strong, capable women. Some women I've met are less capable than others, and that's okay. Some men I've met are less capable than others. That's also okay. Don't be ashamed for being a timid woman. That's your personality. But if you want to become stronger and better than that, you should. There's nothing wrong with that either. They don't know how to write for women. I've given you a great example already about Courtney Cox's character in Masters of the Universe. The irony isn't lost on me that Jim Cameron has probably written better versions of women in his time in the industry than many of these activists, female activists, writing for women today. Let's look at Sarah Connor. No, I'm not going to do that whole thing, look at Sarah Connor, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to say that what Jim does with his female characters, he gives you women that have been lived in, whether it's Sarah Connor or Ripley, or Rose from Titanic. Yeah, she may be this, this rich girl going on the Titanic, but she feels lived in. We feel her anxieties and her emotions and her fears at the beginning of the movie that she goes to try and kill herself and jump off the Titanic. That's how you tell great female stories. That's how you tell any great stories about any characters. It doesn't necessarily have to be about women. But New Hollywood don't want to do that. They don't want to give you women that have been lived in, right? This has been a problem with their representation of the so-called strong woman since really the beginning of the noughties. I got the impression in the marketing, even in the late 90s, yeah, I'm a strong woman, I'm as capable as the man in this movie. And do we all remember those interviews? And we always go, oh, of course you are, but she still needs the guy to rescue her by the end of the movie. But they don't know how to represent women. They used to. Let's look at Dallas. Let's look at Sue Ellen Ewing, who starts off as an incapable, timid drunk, who's psychologically, mentally damaged by her deranged husband, J.R. Ewing. But within the 13 season long run, she becomes a stronger woman, and she vests, she defeats JR, she gets the better of him. We used to get great versions of females, but New Hollywood and the activists in Hollywood have no idea. The problem with Madam Web is it's not a good film, let alone a good representation of female characters. It is not a good film. Now, I've heard from Dakota Johnson talking about these CEOs who know nothing about film interfering and things like that. And, we hear that these companies are conglomerate companies that have no knowledge of the industry. So that means what you've got to do is you've got to get a good CEO of that studio who understands movies and brings in the right talent and allows that talent to do their job. Very interesting listening to Dick Donner on the commentary for all the Lethal Weapon movies, and he had someone next to him in the commentary, and they said to him, how did you get on with the people in charge of WB? He goes, they were great. They said, if you want any help, let us know. Then they went back to their offices. That's how it used to work. They did what they knew, which was good business, and they allowed the creatives to be the creatives. But that's not how Hollywood works today. They are so nervous of losing money, of failing, that they're so hands-on a thing that they know nothing about. They actually make the project lose money in the end. Look at Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. It was going to be a great, epic, sprawling movie with great commentary, a great script written by Jason Momoa. And they interfered with that movie, and it became a pale imitation because they were afraid it wouldn't make any money. What happened in the end? It just about broke even, just about. But it didn't make a profit. Justice League is a fine example because they were so afraid that because Snyder's movies were divisive, so they decided to drive Snyder away, bringing Whedon to recycle that movie, and they made the situation worse because Justice League made less money than BVS because Zack Snyder's kind of scaled down Justice League movie that wouldn't have been the Snyder Cut, by the way, would have made more money than Justice League. But by interfering in that vision, they made the situation worse. Justice League really was the great beginning of New Hollywood interfering in film. And this is exactly what's happened with Morbius. Morbius was made a joke. It was made a meme. And you know what? I hated the fact that people were bullying the Morbius movie because the sad thing is, you've got Jared Leto, a great fucking actor. Make fun of him if you want. Make fun of him, the way he goes about acting and all of that. I couldn't give a shit. The man is a great modern day actor. But it was horrible to see the things people were saying about that movie. They were rightly saying them, but there's some things I don't take pleasure out of bullying movies. I feel sorry for the people involved. I feel sorry for Dakota Johnson because you can see it fucking hurts Dakota. Not just with Madam Web, but what's happening generally in the industry. And I respect her, and I hope she goes on and goes on from this. And I'm sure, hopefully, this movie doesn't hurt her career. What she's saying might hurt her career going forward. We know speaking out isn't something that gets you to go further in the industry. Look at Ray Fisher. Look at the young Latino actress who was in these new Scream movies. They fired her because she showed empathy towards the Palestinian people. Apparently, that's bigoted towards the other side. This is the kind of industry we're in now. This is New Hollywood. Speak out and you're dead. But Dakota isn't having any of it. She's saying Hollywood is fucked. These CEOs are clueless. She's not blatantly saying that, but she's kind of saying it, isn't she? And she's pretty much telling us they made changes to this movie. What about Dakota? Not Dakota, let me start again. What about S.J. Clarkson, the director of this movie? Now, a lot of you won't know who S.J. Clarkson is. S.J. Clarkson directed a many episode of the British version of Life on Mars, which is a TV show I have a great respect for. Clearly, she's a very good director, but there's one thing to direct episodes of Life on Mars. And I don't know what else she's done in her career. I don't know if she's directed other great movies. I have no clue. But this movie is problematic for a multitude of reasons, because this is what's happening now in Hollywood. It isn't about a creative, let's say a writer-director with a vision. Those situations still exist. You don't fuck with Jim Cameron. He's doing Avatar movies. He gets to do whatever the fuck he wants. He's the only creative probably that works at Disney who's allowed to do that. James Gunn, you don't fuck with James Gunn. James Gunn does what he wants to do. Zack Snyder had to fight to do what he wanted to do. But ultimately with Man of Steel, BVS and the Snyder Cut, he got to do what he wanted. Well, apart from having Green Lantern, we'll get to that in 4 or 5 minutes' time. Anyway, so, basically, something like Madam Web is pretty much Justice League, where you've got the nervous studio CEOs who know nothing about films and what it takes to make a great film. Unlike the CEOs of the past. Don't forget, back in the 60s, the Warner, the Xanax, everyone who founded these studios was retiring and they were being bought out by brewery companies. Now, breweries wouldn't know jack shit about making movies, but they appointed the right CEOs who understood what it took. They noticed that younger people were watching films, so they brought in young filmmakers like Coppola and Scorsese and Lucas and Spielberg, who just come out of film schools, something they need to do today. Here's another fact about this situation. This industry pretends it's diverse, it's modern, that it's changing. This industry has not changed in the past 60 to 80 years. It's still doing the same things. It's still promoting these movies the same way. I know there's technology now, but they're promoting these movies the same way. The red carpet, everything, right? Everything they do is the same way. This industry needs to fundamentally change, because some people will try and, say this film is a casualty of wokeness. I don't think that's true. I don't think you can blame wokeness for this movie. I believe this is creative bankruptcy. But you can't blame S.J. Clarkson for this. You can't blame the actors for this. You can't even blame the writer of the movie, whoever that is, or the writers. It's them upstairs, constantly interfering. This is the studio. Now, this is what's really, really interesting to me. This is the studio whose logo is on the Spider-Verse movies. Outstanding comic book movies. Forget the fact they're animated. Comic book movies. Spider-Man No Way Home. So how can these entities get it right and then get it so wrong? Because you've got Lord and Miller on Spider-Verse. No one's going to fuck with Lord and Miller, right? You had Kevin Feige there for Spider-Man No Way Home. Not that he hasn't fucked up recently as well. But clearly, all the entities work together better for those elements than for these films. Because what happens is with something like Madam Web and Morbius, they're put together by the studio. And that is the real problem here. When a studio puts a movie together, that's when it ends up shit. The Flash movie was put together by Warner Brothers Pictures, not because of a creative vision. They brought on Andres Muschietti. It wasn't his vision. He was just about the director, and they were probably directing the director. Same thing with a lot of DC movies recently as well. That's the difference between Joker. And Joker Folie à Deux will be a great movie because it's a director's vision. And there's the difference. We need to go back to director's vision. Let's go back to Superman the movie. That was put together by, the idea came from Elias Salkind and his father. And they put that movie together But they didn't know what they were doing until Dick Donner. They just, clumsily brought in Dick Donner. They didn't even know, they had a director. They were going to shoot in Italy, but then the Italian government were after, Brando and Bertolucci for Last Tango in Paris. So basically, they had to change director because the director couldn't shoot in the UK, which they decided to move to because he was a tax expert. So we lucked into getting Dick Donner on Superman the movie, basically. A guy who absolutely respected the myth and didn't fuck around with that myth, right? So when you've got someone who knows what they're doing, who cares about what they're doing, you don't need to know. You don't need to be an expert on comic books to do a great comic book movie. Bryan Singer knows nothing about comics. He didn't grow up reading comics. X-Men 1 and 2 are great. He researched the comics. He fucking got it. He made two of the cheapest CBMs of all time and probably two of the best CBMs of all time. Not about knowing your stuff. It's about, because he came from indie movies, right? Like The Usual Suspects is one of the great movies, right? And we know Singer's a problematic person, but still a damn good director in his early years. And that's what it's all about. So I can't defend Madam Web. I can tell you not to attack the actors and the director. I can tell you that the studio is to blame. And as long as we're not working off of directorial visions, we have a problem. Dune and Dune 2 is the vision of Denis Villeneuve. That's why they're great movies. And I know Dune 2 is a good movie. It's a good movie. That's all I'm going to say, right? It's a good fucking movie, and so is the first one. Normally, when you work from a directorial vision, it may not be everyone's cup of tea. Like the Snyder movies are not everyone's cup of tea, but they're from a vision. Like Man of Steel is the vision of Nolan, Goya, and Snyder. BVS is Snyder's vision. The Snyder Cut is Snyder's vision. That vision may not be your cup of tea, but they're well-made fucking movies. At the very least, you've got to accept that. And that's the thing. Now let's move on, because we need to talk about DC. We're here to talk about DC on a daily basis. And it's very, very interesting, the divide between some Snyderverse fans still trying to attack James Gunn. So yesterday we spoke about Frank Grillo on the DC Universe Daily, and he made some comments. He's revealed that Creature Commandos is a hard R. This is the first entry to DC Universe, and it's an animated series. Now, this is very, very interesting because Aaron Fisher, who's made it his mission in life to create a platform to attack James Gunn and DCU, decided to have a huge rant like a great many Snyderverse fans. The verbal ones, right? Oh my God, they're saying this is not for children. How can you have a hard R project as your first project in the DCU? How can you not make it for kids? Well, well, well. Talk about fucking hypocrisy, everyone. Because it is very, very hypocritical. Because guess what? The Snyderverse, and especially Man of Steel, which is the first movie, because they're saying, oh my God, this is the first project in the DCU. And it's not for kids. Oh my God, this is outrageous. So was Man of Steel for kids? No, it wasn't. You've got Lois Lane talking about measuring dicks. You've got Superman breaking Zod's neck, which cost the movie around $300 to $400 million. Right? Man of Steel isn't a kid's movie. I love Man of Steel. I love the Snyderverse. I love Snyder. Remember when Snyder had a go at Scott Mendelson, the Forbes analyst, for saying Justice League was for kids and it felt like a Saturday morning cartoon? And basically Snyder attacked him on Twitter and he said, well, you said that about that. Well, my movie's for adults, right? For adults. Your movies, Zach, excuse me, your movies, Zach, were for adults, not for kids. That's fine. Zack Snyder took children out of the element of making the Snyderverse. Now, James Gunn isn't going to do that, but his first project is R-rated. But his Superman movie won't be R-rated. It will be for the family experience, I'm quite sure. Not that James Gunn's used to making films for families. Let's be honest about it. James Gunn's humour is pretty adult. in his movies. So that is an interesting situation as well. We'll see how he does. But it is rather ironic that, you've got people like Aaron Fesher, people from the Snyderverse fandom, attacking a guy for having a hard R animated series as the entry point to DCU, where Man of Steel wasn't exactly child friendly. Now, the guy who did the drawings or whatever for the Snyder Cut basically leaked the pictures for Hal Jordan's the Green Lantern costumes for the Snyder Cut, because originally we were going to have John Stewart and Hal Jordan in the Snyder Cut, and Hal Jordan was going to be played by Ryan Reynolds. Yeah, it would have been huge, it would have been awesome, but WB said, look, Zach, you can't do that. We have plans for Green Lantern and we don't want you confusing audiences. Now, personally, I don't agree with the confused audiences, but again, certain Snyderverse fans are trying to say that there was never a Green Lantern project in development, and they were lying. They were not lying. Mark Guggenheim and Greg Berlanti were developing a Green Lantern core series for HBO Max. This is true. They were doing it because I covered it on this channel back 2 or 3 years ago. It was happening. They were telling the truth. Again, the lies come out. They were never planning to do anything. Yes, they were, because I was covering it. I understand people's frustrations that Snyder's stuff wasn't completed, that Zack Snyder's arc wasn't completed. I get it. I'm as frustrated as you are. But attacking James Gunn on a daily basis, making up lies, isn't the way to deal with it. At the end of the day, fight for it. Fight to see more. I think it's rather unlikely, but I wouldn't give up either if I were you. Maybe there's a chance of Netflix buying the Snyderverse stuff. WB are very desperate financially, so it could happen. It's unlikely we'll ever see the Snyderverse return. Maybe one day Zack will get his dream to make, that Dark Knight Returns movie. Unfortunately, though, he used lots of elements from that comic book in BVS, where really they should have just let him do a Dark Knight Returns. I've said this before. That made more sense. It's very unlikely he'll get that opportunity. I think we have to be honest and say that Snyder is done with DC. We've got to see the second part of Rebel Moon. Then the extended cuts. I'm sure the second movie has an extended cut as well. Zack Snyder is cooking over at Netflix. The problem is his biggest supporter has now left Netflix. Maybe that's something that Snyderverse fans should be more concerned about. Rather than attacking a franchise he has nothing to do with. The Snyderverse of DC is over. 3 wonderfully artistic made movies for DC. And I love them. And I always go back to them. And I'll always enjoy them. But you think by spouting these lies and this bullshit on a daily basis that you're actually going to restore the Snyderverse. You won't. You think if you get James Gunn fired, you're going to restore the Snyderverse. You are very naive people who do not understand this industry. Aaron Fesher is a very amusing content creator, not purposely. He says he has documents about this, documents about that. He keeps on telling us how the share price is going down. It really doesn't matter, Aaron, because these are the facts. Yes, the Snyderverse movies made more than most of the movies in the DC Extended Universe, but the money they made wasn't enough to improve the situation. So he doesn't get to come back to make mainstream movies. It's as simple as that. James Gunn has got his hands on the steering wheel, and the only way he loses his job if he makes a mess of Superman Legacy. That's it. That's what you've got to hope and pray for. I'm not hoping and praying for that because I like Gunn, I like DC, I love DC, and I adore Superman since I was a small boy, as most of you who know me quite well by now know. So I'm not going to pray for a Superman movie to be shit and for it to fail. My gut feeling says that Superman Legacy is going to cook. This is a great opportunity for James Gunn. And just on the subject of the composer who was announced, John Murphy, who did The Suicide Squad. There's been a lot of conjecture, oh, he's not the right person. Actually, I was rewatching the movie. Actually, I was rewatching Gunn's commentary. I love James Gunn's commentary on The Suicide Squad. There's not dead air. But just listening to that music and listening to that soundtrack on a daily basis, it's actually got some really great themes. So there's a lot of evidence from that. Don't forget, The Suicide Squad is a R-rated movie. So the music's going to be different. But I do believe he's going to give us a great score for Superman Legacy.